Oh my God, I've been talking for 7 minutes without my microphone on. That's annoying. Ugh, I might just... How do I do this? Just say, can you hear me now? Why didn't anybody tell me? Oh dear. There we go. So now I can see it. Now I'll start again. Okay, so we're going to be talking about the Manchester attack. We're going to be flying into what's happening next. And we're also going to kind of revisit the HRA. And we're also going to be talking about how your nan is the magic secret manifestor. Not just your nan, but my nan and everybody's nan. So apologies for those of you who were listening and thinking, oh my God, my internet's not working. It wasn't you. My microphone wasn't... turned on. So let's just dive into what was going on in Manchester. We're going to have a little recap for those of you who maybe were, I don't know, hiding under a rock or whatever you were doing. So October the 2nd, which was Yom Kippur, is Judaism's holiest day. So fasting, atonement, maximum synagogue turnout, and actually a lot of them they have like digital detox, so weren't even aware all of this was going on until really late. So it happened at Heaton Park Hebrew Congregation Synagogue in Crump Saul in Manchester, and actually it's the UK's second largest Jewish community outside London, with around 30,000 people. So Manchester, obviously an important place to do it, because it was potential for maximum harm. I say that, but it's really strange that he was wearing a fake suicide vest. So I don't know whether he just chickened out, or I mean, it's a really strange thing to do. So he was killed within. So Jihad al-Shami. So the jihadi called Jihad al-Shami, who was a Syrian national, not British born, which is what everybody kept saying for ages. He rammed a car into the synagogue, wore a faked bomb vest, and he was shot dead by the police 7 minutes later. Right, that's what we're talking about. So there was two Jewish people who were killed, 3 others, 2 men in their 30s and 1 woman in the 60s, who were injured and hospitalized. And it was declared a marauding terrorist attack. Operation Plato was enacted, and obviously heightened security across UK synagogues, which is what we've seen. So counter-terrorism police have treated it as anti-Semitic terror. Everybody took to Twitter saying, oh my God, like, it's terrible, Starmer included. And you're all like, yeah, but you're the ones who fucking caused this shit. So come on, dude. So there's been an increase in anti-Semitic attacks by 35% since October 7 last year. And obviously tomorrow is October 7, 2023, and tomorrow will be the anniversary, 2nd year anniversary. So it's not going to be, I perceive more shit happening tomorrow, to be fair. So it's 100% orchestrated. And so that does 100% is my estimation. That doesn't mean people didn't die, just because it's a false flag, just because it's a psyop, it doesn't mean people don't die, doesn't mean they don't capitalize on the fear and on the murder, right, and the horrificness of what the situation. It just means that it was probably maneuvered into play, and they knew it was going to happen at some point, right? So if you think about the Gretchen Wilmer fake kidnapping, there was like a gazillion FBI agents and like one real person, right? So they manipulate it to ensure the outcome happens, and they don't give a shit whether somebody dies or not, right? So let's not forget that, and still people weren't, I don't know why people weren't talking about the whole recognizing the Palestinian state on Jewish New Year, the day before and the day after, right? So it was UK, Canada, and Australia did it the day after, and then also Portugal has done, France has done. So over the kind of Jewish Holy Week, which starts with their New Year and ends with Yom Kippur, everybody's like pushing Palestinian two-state solution, right? So we have Trump, thankfully, kind of trying to broker a peace deal, and everybody else is just, you know, fingers in the pies doing retarded shit. So September the 26th, there was a YouGov poll that says that, so I had a good old conversation with Grok, right? I've actually been having this conversation for the last 3 days, 4 days. Friday morning? Yeah, maybe Friday morning. I can't remember. Saturday morning? Anyway, I don't know what day it is today. Monday. So that helps. So for the last couple of days at least, I've been having this conversation as my brain's been going to crazy places. But one of the things that I noticed very early is we had, obviously we had the digital ID thing, but quick update, Plantier says that they do not want to have anything to do with it because it wasn't part of Labour manifesto, and so it's not what the public voted for. Also, the BBC had to apologise for sharing disinformation about Tony Blair's son being involved. So I had loads of people saying to me, well, I can't remember where I saw it, but I definitely saw it. Well, it was the BBC who put it out there. So BBC didn't fact check themselves in any way, shape or form. So what's really interesting was the timing, right? Timing is key. And so what we had on the 21st, which was Jewish New Year, just when, you know, around then everybody was recognizing the Palestinian state, the 26th of September. And so the Friday before the Monday, right? So the Friday was, Stan was like, everybody has to have digital ID because that's what we're going to do. And it's tough tits. If you want to work here, we're going to save the country by having digital ID. And now there's going to be no more terrorists, right? And I was like, oh yeah, so we're obviously going to have a terrorist attack. I mean, we all knew. And so 26th of September, this is really interesting. If you missed this, there was a YouGov poll that said there was supposedly a split between mandatory digital ID or not, with 42% supporting and 43% saying no. So there's less people are saying, so people said no. Right. And obviously there was the giant petition, right? Giant petition, which has hit over 2.5 million. And if you haven't signed that, make sure you do. And if you didn't sign for the updates, then you may not be aware. They're going to say they're going to do a consultation, but pretty much they're trying to do it anyway, because they have to. And then it doesn't really matter anyway, because they're tagging and bagging kids when they're born. That's the point of the bill that's in Parliament right now, the Children's Rights Bill that everybody tried to stop, and everybody said that we were just being mean and evil. That is packed full of so much dangerous shit. It's insane. So we've also had more cyber incidents. So just showing you how inept the government is and how dangerous it would be for them to have all of our data. I can't figure out where to put the microphone because it is backwards. So, the day before the attack, Starmer vowed there needs to be a Human Rights Act review to speed up deportations. We've got the Labour conference. We've had the Reform conference. Everybody's talking about boats, right? And I'm not going to call them irregular migrants. They're not irregular migrants. These are illegals, right? These are illegals who are fighting age males from countries, which we'll talk about in a minute, that are not countries that makes them irregular, right? It's not that they want to come and work and they just couldn't get a visa. They don't want to come and work, right? So obviously Starmer's in on the act with regards to the Human Rights Act, which we'll talk about later. And he was one of the ones who was kind of instrumental in putting it in the first place. So now everybody is pushing to get rid of the Human Rights Act, which should tell you, everybody, they're all globalists, right? So that should tell you everything you need to know about the fact that we fucking need to keep it. So October the 2nd, the attack hit. And obviously the BBC did what the BBC does best and spread more disinformation, saying it was far-right extremism. Now, I don't know any far-right people who would go and use a car and then wear a suicide vest, right? That is not... hey Edwin, that's not far right in any way, shape or form, and all the people they're calling far right is you and me, right? We're the far right according to the BBC. And obviously they then had to apologize again because they just made shit up. That, you know, if any, they just make shit up. So they were obviously saying it was linked to Tommy Robinson and the Giant March, where there was like potentially 1.5 million people, 2 million people there, and there were like 23 arrests. And then there was Notting Hill Carnival, where they had like 400 arrests before it even started. Let's just put it into perspective of who's causing the violence, right? So obviously the BBC are fueling the race riots and the war because that's what the BBC are there for. So what happened under the radar leading up to the attack was the fact that Barack Obama was in London. Right, he was in London. He was promoting the Obama Foundation and a book called A Promised Land. He spoke about democracy being under strain from authoritarianism and blamed Trump. In the United Kingdom, when we have Starmer, two-tier Keir, it was Trump's fault. Like, everything's Trump's fault. Right now, what's even crazier is people paid between £50 and £200 to go and see this person speak. And he looks really fucking old. That adrenochrome withdrawal is hitting him hard. So there was around 14,000 people there. So it was a huge money laundering activity because, you know, he's got money. So why did he need more money? It's because they keep taking his money off him, is my 2 cents, 10 cents, or whatever it is. So he didn't meet Starmer because Starmer was away at the Labour conference. It was really odd, right? And I didn't even know this happened until today. Like, I only found out today because I saw a random op-ed about my conversation with Obama when he was, and I was like, what the fuck, when was Obama in London? So basically we had Trump come with the proper state visit, and then, you know, Starmer did the things that he wasn't supposed to do, i.e. let's recognize Palestine, even though Trump said let's not do this. Look, I've got a way forward, I know how we can go about this, I've got a peace deal, I've got Hamas coming to the table, let's not kind of jump the gun. So then Starmer did it anyway, and then Trump goes home, and then Obama comes, and then we have a terrorist attack. It's kind of like like everybody saw it coming, right? Because it's just so, that's what we mean by scripted, right? It doesn't mean everybody's involved. It just means that they are using the timelines of events that are happening to plug the gaps with things that they want to happen. He also went to Dublin on the 26th, right? So he was, it was September the 24th. He was at the O2 Arena. On the 26th, he was in Dublin. Again, talking about, freedom of speech in Dublin. Those poor Irish who are being battered left, right, and centre by the illegals. We also had loads of protests, whether you saw them or didn't see them. So we had like 140 arrests. Right, there was around 1,000 people and there was 140 arrests. And then we had an arson attack on a mosque in a kind of sleepy English. It's kind of like middle class, right? Where it happened. So that's absolutely not where anybody's going to be doing it that isn't a stage. And that entire thing where they get out of the taxi, set fire to the ground, and don't really kind of set fire to the mosque, but it kind of catches like it considering they have been setting like hundreds of churches ablaze, but the mosque is important. So yesterday we then had a vigil for October 7th and Manchester. So the kind of swinging left and right. Well, I mean, like extreme, right? And then we come to today. So the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, when was Trump here? 3 weeks. It was bound to start kicking off. Let me just... Okay, so when we go back to why Manchester, so we know that kind of Obama was here with his fucking man, woman, wife thing. Now we've got to dive into Manchester, because let's start talking about the things that people aren't talking about now that we're all kind of caught up. Okay, so we have Andy Burnham, and this is what kind of the first thing that went through my mind. So the second thing that went through my mind, the first thing that went through my mind, hey Max, the first thing that went through my mind was the fact that ID, right? We just had like the digital ID, like people were saying no en masse, right? So they were going to have to do something because they're they're using that. It's national security. They're going to have to, right? So we knew something was coming. But what we also had was Andy Burnham trying to... There was a potential coup going on in the Labour Party over the Labour conference, right? Andy Burnham being touted as to take over, and he was pushing. We're going to move. He wants to go back to the EU. Remember, he's like mafia boss. He is. Dodgy as fuck. So he was pushing for... And lots of people were pushing for him to take over. So, of course, it had to be Manchester, because that's now put him in his place, right? So it could have been a few other places, but Manchester, it had to be Manchester. And it's not because that's where Ariana Grande was. It's because that's where Andy Burnham was trying to do the soft coup. Right, because as soon as the attack happened, Andy Burnham's gone quiet, right? Keir Starmer's still in control. I mean, as in control as he ever was, but Burnham stopped talking, because if he can't even control his own city, which he's the mayor of, how the fuck can he keep the country safe, right? Straight away. So it's really important. So 62% of Labour members prefer him over Starmer. So remember, Starmer is like the most hated person, and so they need him to kind of come front and centre. They also need him to come front and centre because they need to get ahead of the grooming gangs. And we're going to talk about the grooming gangs again in a little while, but just have that in mind. He has successfully covered up everything in Manchester, blocked everything about the grooming gangs and is now gaslit people into believing he wanted the fucking inquiry, right? People are so dumb. But that's where he is right now. But so we have obviously Starmer swung into action with his Cobra meeting, and this is him, his opportunity to be the strong. I mean, he just looks like a fucking pleb. Anyway, to be the strong leader that we need. Okay. So we also have so why does it scream false flag, right? We had the digital ID push, we've had they have to do something, right? So this is the same playbook, right? So it worked to spark the riots last year. It works to just. I don't think they could have got away with more kids, right? I think they had to take it up a notch and actually go after a community who both left and right are currently gunning for, right? So I keep saying, stop saying Jews, stop saying, because they're not Jewish people. The people who are the puppet masters, they're not Jewish. Like, I know, like, if you knew anybody who was Jewish, like, they are like, what the fuck is going on in this world? Like, why can't everybody just be fucking happy? So and not all Muslims are fucking terrorists either, right? So let's, and not all Christians, and some Christians are fucking insane, and some Muslims are insane, and some Christians are insane, and some Jewish people are insane. But the puppet masters, they're not Jewish. We need to stop saying that. It's been driving me batty for ages. But so now we've got both the left and the right blaming everything on the Jews. So they're an easy target, right? Excuse me. Oh, okay. So we had the Burnham thing, which kind of pinpointed Manchester. But actually, Manchester has been a kind of PSYOP starter point for over 200 years. And I hadn't realized, like, for over 200 years. So way back in 1819, there was Peterloo's Sabres. So 15 were dead for demanding votes. And then obviously all the way up to 2017's arena bombing with 22 kids, right? But we also had race riots in 1919, in Moss Side in 1981. We had far-right mobs in 2024. So Manchester is an easily controlled population because there's so many little pockets of things that you can pull the strings on, right? We've got socioeconomic deprivation. We have got loads of different ethnic pockets. We have got it's less it's working class, right? So it's not going to be they're easier to manipulate, right? It's 42% are ethnic minority. And here's an interesting little tidbit. MI5 has been watching Manchester since the suffragettes, right? So it's Manchester is like the UK Chicago, which, was interesting because that's obviously Obama territory. So Chicago was the test bed, is the test bed for social experiments. And as I was going through university, I always wanted to go. I decided I wanted to go to Chicago because I wanted to go and see this. I wanted to go and be part of the Chicago school. And the Chicago school is where they did all the social experiments, and lots of kind of like sociology based theories came out of it. Now, back then, I didn't realize that they were just fucking doing it on the population. I thought it was like, we'll just do a proper experiment where people like know what's going on. No. They were actually just fucking with them. And so that's what they've been doing to Manchester, right? Manipulating the population and just fucking with them. So in 1919, we had job competition, which led to attacks on Black and BME, with 1,000 BME residents targeted. And we had... so we started to see the psyop of the moral panic, right? Foreign invasion, like back then, right? Now we have a fucking invasion. They didn't mention it, but back then we had 1,000 people knocking around, and they hyped it to justify deportations, right? So 100 years ago, we were in the exact same fucking situation. 1981 Moss Side riots. So this was stop and search raids on Black youths. We had 3 days of petrol bombs, 200 plus arrests, 47 officers injured. And this was this is where they kind of like pulled back, like stop and search, right? And then shit happened. Shit got worse. So MI5 had their eye on Black agitators via special branch, and we know this thanks to declassified files. So the same thing was going on in Chicago with targeting MLK, Black Panthers. So Coin Intel Pro, which is counterintelligence. As the name of what was going on. 2001 Oldham riots. So BNP, so they're swinging, right? So they are psyoping the non-white, then they're psyoping the whites. Then you kind of psyop both of them at the same time, but they kind of push and infiltrate. So in 2001 there was the BNP and National Front marches, so which ignited Asian white clashes. So basically they kind of swooped in, got rid of all the kind of Caribbean drug dealers, and then the Asians came in. And that's what happened in Telford. Like literally the day we moved to Hadley, my dad went to the fish and chip shop because obviously we didn't have any food, and everybody in like Hadley Town Centre was arrested, like including my dad and this little old lady. They were all taken to the police station, and everybody was arrested because they were rounding up the Caribbean drug dealers, and that left a vacuum for the Pakistanis. So they were given free rein. So 2001, sorry, my apologies. So there was 100 injured plus 100 plus £1 million damage. So this was a far right psyop, and MI5 infiltrated the BNP and the National Front. So if you've ever kind of read like Operation Gladio stuff, which is when people stayed behind after World War II to keep kind of pushing the bullshit, and yes, the CIA and the FBI do this, but like they learn from MI5, MI6. Like they all talk, and so now I would say like there are certain intelligence agencies that are better at it than us, because they have less morals. But we started it, right? Then in 2011, we had the Salford riots. Thanks to there was a Mark Duggan shooting. So there was 147 arrests, looting, cross-racial, but it was all blamed on gangs. And this is where we see 77th Brigade come into play, where they started monitoring social media. Obviously, we had MI5 involved, messing shit up. And then obviously last year with the Newton Heath riots. So Tommy Robertson fueled anti-migrant mobs, torched asylum hotels, 100 plus arrests, and Russian bots amplified, and supposedly, right? I mean, I believe they probably did. FYI on Tommy Robinson. So how funny now, the Israeli statement, I saw somebody over has like called him over, right? So maybe his base will see that he has been pushing a narrative but being paid under the table. So maybe we'll see it. So we've had the 1819 Peterloo Massacre, we had 1842 plug riots, and that's not like electric plugs, that was mill workers who were plugging factory engines over wage cuts, right? So this is when there was industrialization, and this is where like you get the Luddites and all of that stuff. But so we had so 1819, which is the original, it's like literally the original false flag. So the magistrates claimed rebellion to justify 6 acts, which includes censorship, and the Secret Service Bureau, which was MI5's precursor. So the false flag, and then we got MI5, right? So in the 1842 plug riots, it was we had MI6 had its toes dipped into the unions, and I know for a fact that obviously, well, I say I know for a fact, but I would hazard a huge freaking guess that the same sort of shit was going on with the all the protests that are happening, right? But definitely what was going on in Maggie's reign, and the coal miners' strikes, right? 1931, there was a means tested march. So this was like 10,000 unemployed. So depression psyop, MI5 were monitoring red agitators. So this is like precursor to kind of Cold War stuff. We also then had anti-poll tax riots, so Manchester Hub for 250,000, national demo. Everybody was labelled like the enemy within. So we see people being labelled and targeted over and over and over again. And then we've had recent anti-austerity fracking, which was a psyop by the Green Party, right? So Manchester is they're just psyoped left, right, and centre. And then obviously we've had the arena bombing in 2017. And we've spoken about that before. And then we've had this synagogue attack. But I don't think Manchester was the initial choice. I think Manchester was chosen because Andy Burnham was too big for his boots and he needed to be shut down. So, and Manchester's easy manipulatable, right? So what we also have is, so then once I was kind of doing this, I started to ask Grok some very interesting questions, right? Because what popped into my head was Tor's always talks about predictive analytics, right? And how people are nodes, how they're treated. People are treated like nodes, but people forget that we have free will and we just like decide, no, I'm going to fucking do that today. And I was just like, okay, well, I wonder if I could ask Grok. So if you were going to start civil war in the United Kingdom, paying attention to all the kind of false flags, all the shit that's happened over the last 200 years, how would you do it? What would you do and where would you do it? And it was really interesting. This is why I'm going to come back to the whole mosque burning, is because I asked that question and then 2 days later a mosque was set on fire, and Grok said, who obviously patterns, that's what AI can do, read information and look for patterns. And he'd said, well, okay, well, if we kind of take Manchester bombing as like the first event, the second event will be arson on a mosque, right? It's like, how did he know? Anyone, any guess? because the English people and even the Jewish people was going to make us angry, right? But we aren't going to flood the streets and do any violent things because we haven't been brought up to be violent thugs. However, you have to attack us first in order to then attack the Islamists, the imported army, who 75% of the 43,000 on the watch list are jihadi terrorists, right? So we had to be the target, and I say we because I think the Jewish population, the vast majority of the Jewish population, have actually integrated very well. So we had to be attacked first, and this is the same as Southport, right? We had to be attacked. We may get angry, we may say shit on social media. There may be a few people who go a bit extreme, but it's the other side that will cause the conflict, right? So I was just like, well, wait a minute, so as soon as he said it, I said, oh well, that makes sense, right? Can't be. We don't have the arms. We aren't. We are still intellectual and using consultations. We're still using petitions. We're still using the law to try and change things because we are civil. Like we are civilized, right? That's what you do. You don't. And so again, I don't think Tommy Robinson is civilized in the way that he behaves, right? But the vast majority of the people in the United Kingdom who were born and bred here have already gone past the point where we take pitchforks, right? We've already gone past the point where we blow shit up, right? We had Guy Fawkes was trying to do that hundreds of years ago. We have evolved and we have increased our capacity to think and empathize and understand that actually burning shit down does nothing other than burn shit down, right? So we would not be the ones who would be starting it. But we have to be targeted first to justify the then MI5, MI6 attack on something that will cause the havoc. So what I wanted to know, I said, okay, so what makes a target sensible for escalation? So, I kind of said to him, they're not going to bomb Parliament. They're not going to, they're not going to be able to kind of do anything at any of the political rallies because now, there's obviously, and the Conservative Party is in Manchester, so there's going to be increased security, right? There's no way they can get a high-powered target. So what I asked him was, what makes a target sensible for escalation? He had to keep saying, so hypothetically, this is just a thought experiment. I was like, yeah, I'm not trying to start a fucking war. I'm just trying to figure out what they're going to do it. So target symbols of a division: asylum hotel, which is what we saw, right? Which is why Lucy was, so attack her, and then they get to do the other thing, right? And her and the other 400 people who were put in prison. Mosques or a police station. So there's no reason for it to be a police station because it's wrong. You wouldn't attack us again. It would have to be and Grok didn't pick this up. I picked this up. I was like, okay, well, it's not gonna be another Western target, right? Because they've just been doing the churches. They've been running us over, stabbing us, massacring us, and us, raping us left, right, and center. That's not how we behave. It has to be them. So asylum hotel or mosque, right? Straight up. Has to be low security. It needs to be a lone actor or small cell. For example, a vehicle ramming and then arson. So we didn't have a vehicle ramming, but we had arson, right? So we had the taxi, right? So these are the things. So it seems to me like MI5 and MI6 are using like AI to figure out what they should be doing, right? This is the time traveling predictive analytics. We literally have it in our hands, and we didn't think about using it in this way because we're not trained evil people. So Grok reckons you need to hit a city with 20% plus ethnic minority, needs to be high deprivation, and also needs to have a far right or activist network, right? So in EDL remnants. So needs to be spread via X. I think Grok's getting a little bit. This is why Grok was getting confused. He was trying to say, "Oh, it's going to be like the right who are kind of pushing it." Doubt it. So top candidates of cities ranked by volatility. So I'm walking you through the conversation, by the way, guys, which is why it's jumping around. And I've actually kind of reordered it, so it makes more sense than the conversation that we're having, because I was going all over the place. But obviously, Grok can keep up. I understand that my brain doesn't always make it easy for everybody else to keep up, so I have reordered it. So I got Grok to kind of to give me the top 5 cities. Like, where would Grok place? Like, if he was going to do this thing, where would he go for? Which is why it happening in Sussex is like, that's really strange. The only reason why that's happened is because it's not supposed to start it yet, right? It's too soon. But they've kind of capitalized on it, although maybe they might be doing the whole Islamophobia bullshit, or with the IDs. So it was only for IDs, but that's not the. It's not going to be the event. We're going to have more, lots more. But what actually, in my opinion, is going to spark it is nobody's even considered this at all. So the top 5, we've got Bradford, obviously. So we got 68 crime index, 30% Pakistani, ethnic minority, 2001 riots legacy, high deprivation is in the top 5% of deprivation. So feasibility hit. So we can watch out for all of these things as they kind of pop off, right? Asylum hotel arson, like Rotherham. So sectarian, whites versus Asian, far right influx from Leeds, could Ulsterize Mayhem. Birmingham, 63 crime index, 31% in minority white British, right? 1981-2024 riots, grooming scandals. He reckons there'll be a stabbing at Alum Rock Mosque or Handsworth Police Station. Multi-ethnic clashes, Black, Asian, Sikh, supply chain disruption. So we've already got bin strikes, unrest, chaos. Let's not forget our Home Secretary is from Birmingham. Oldham or Burnley, 2001 epicenter, 25% plus ethnic minority, far right strongholds. It's in the top 10% for deprivation. Here in Burnham, the Oldham and Burnley reckons there'll need to be a vehicle attack on a school or a protest, right? So specific things identified in specific cities to pop it off. This was really enlightening. But these are the kind of the key things that they'll use, right? It's the same playbook. So Oldham, Burnley, quick spread to Manchester, and then the BNP revival. London, such as Tower Hamlets, 55 crime index, 37% foreign born. So we've got Whitechapel, the areas of concern as well. Reckons it'll be a knife attack on a migrant rally. For example, post Bangladesh unrest. So kind of we've got to pay attention to what's going on in Bangladesh. Then he reckons national media will ramp that up. And then potential hits on airports, Thames, logistic breakdown. But in London, unlikely because of the amount of police, they could contain it. Right, it could be London could be contained, and obviously London is more insulated and protected because we've got Houses of Parliament and it's a very affluent area, right? These pockets of very affluent areas, and it's very closely knit together. you think about how many millions of people live in London compared to how many millions live in the rest of the UK. So it takes like minutes for police to get around London, even though obviously there's like traffic jams left, right, and centre. It takes like a long time for the police to rock up in Telford, even though it's only like a couple of miles away down the road, and like there's hardly any traffic, depending on the time of the day. And even when it's like peak traffic, it takes you like 10 minutes rather than like 5. And then Manchester. So Manchester's at the bottom of the list, but we had Burnham, right? So 55 crime index, 42 ethnic minority, like history of freaking psyops. So he reckons in Manchester it does need to be a bombing. It does need to be like big, and then feasible via radicalized locals such as Syrian networks. Youth gangs. So this will be like kind of the what happens next. Youth gangs and nativist economic hub collapse, and then that's the escalation. It's like somebody that takes over the ports. So not Liverpool or Nottingham. They have high crime, but less ethnic flashpoints. So they tried Southport, and it was everywhere else that caused like pops, right? Rural south doesn't work, low density, so it needs to be high density. No issues in Scotland and Wales because they're all fucking asleep. Supposedly they're 3 times more optimistic than people in England about the futures because they're fucking asleep. But so it's not going to happen in Scotland or Wales, although it could happen in Glasgow, because they had sturgeon and they are in the same sort of they are feeling the shit, right? So as a strategist, pure thought experiment, like reminding me, I'd aim for asymmetric ignition. So low cost, high impact to force state overreach. So it needs to be this is how my brain started to go where it was going. It needs to be able to pop off in multiple places at exactly the same time. It needs to pop off within 24 or 48 hours across the entire country. So the goal is to spark, factionalize, and balkanize. So we need to have no-go zones, such as what happened in 2025. So do you remember when the social services went to take those 2 kids? And they couldn't get the kids had to come back. So there's precedence for enough people blocking what's going on. So he reckons Manchester was precursor because of the non-stop, it's just ease of manipulation in Manchester, is my opinion. So the spark will be midsummer 2026 during the heat wave and economic dip post the 2025 recession, right? So we have to have the recession first. This is why Labour's driving us into the ground, because we have to be fucking desperate, right? We have to be starving. We have to be on our knees, which is why we've got non-stop fucking energy price increases, which is why we've got non-stop food prices increases. And now we're being told we can't work unless we have digital ID, even though we don't want it. And all the fucking illegals don't even need digital ID to fucking work, right? So we are being pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed because they need us to fucking act. Because obviously they need the Civil Contingencies Act from 2004, where they just fucking take us out of our homes, roll us up into that fucking gulags. So, and I kept telling me it will always be a summer holidays. It will always be a school summer holidays, because that's when the fucking lefties are allowed. So we've got the fucking champagne socialists who are at university who are off. We have the teachers who are fucking off. All the working class people who are still fucking working aren't even able to defend themselves. So it has to happen in the summer, right? So, hey, Linda. Yeah, I hope they're doing it, right? If they're using predictive analytics, I know that the good guys are using predictive analytics. And even if they're not, we can start fucking using it, right? And we can start calling it out before it fucking happens. And then we've got evidence that we fucking called it out before it happened. And then we can do the shit we need to do to stop it. So, what Grok thought, and I said, no, I think you're wrong. I think they've tried that, and they're not stupid per se, but they are unlikely to do the exact same thing as fast. So Grok thought they'd do a Southport 2.0, but do it against a BME group, right? And I was like, but you can't. So it won't be. That's not the behavior of the West, right? That's not the behavior of the West. Like, you're not going to get, I mean, Tommy Robinson and his ilk are thugs. They're not going to go into a school and knife a child. They're just not. Potentially arson, hotel housing, 200 plus Afghan Syrians. So like a lone actor via Telegram. Lone actor who happens to be like MI5, MI6, 70-something brigade, that type of lone actor, right? So in order to carry this out, this is what Grok reckons. We'll get to what I think is going to happen. So he reckons you need to infiltrate EDL, far right, and Islamist cells via X. So this was interesting. There's a 70% overlap between Islamic terrorists and far right, so EDL, like actual far right. There's a 70% overlap in anti-state rhetoric, right? So this is it's the Jewish fault, the Jewish problem. Because Starmer's tied into the Friends of Israel. It's the Jews, it's the Jews, it's the Jews. Like literally, like 70% of the anti-state rhetoric is the exact same, whether they are Islamic or whether they are actual far right. So there's also, I didn't realize this, there's 2 million plus illegal firearms on the dark, like available for sale on the dark web. And that's like a National Crime Agency statistic, like recent statistic. So they can spread very quickly. And I'll tell you why and how when we get on to where I think it's going to happen. He reckons a vehicle ramming at a pro or anti-migrant rally with over 500 attendees. Remember, we've had this already. We had a fucking ramming people at the football, right? So immediate casualties, you know, again, so this is why we have to be careful, because Grok's got it in his head. It's going to be until I went, that's not how it's going to happen, because that's not how the West go. I remember, like, predict, and if they don't understand that, now maybe I've just told them. Maybe this is why they keep doing it, because they just haven't figured it out yet. That the culture matters, right? Anyway, so cascade tactics, coordinate copycats in Birmingham and Oldham 48 hours later, target infrastructure, so national grid for blackouts, and then encouraging vigilantes, right? So native versus enclave. And we see, if you've seen the young white lads policing the streets, right? And we also have non-whites policing streets in other areas, and we already have that, right? So then we'll have obviously the state martial law, Civil Contingencies Act. Then we have Reform UK Youths versus ethnic minorities. I don't. It's very confused. This is what they will think is happening, right? This is why this is really interesting. So then we have sabotage, lorry blockades on M6, foreign meddling, so both Russia and China bots ramping it up, and obviously we'll have Israeli bots, we'll have Iranian bots, we'll have 77 brigade bots. We'll have whoever's fucking paying whoever. We'll have the caterpillar eyebrow fucking influencers on TikTok and Instagram. So the odds, maybe, is it? I was going to say, what if I place a bet on what I think is going to happen? I mean, would I go to prison for that? Maybe. I just use predictive analytics. Okay, but so that plan, 20 to 30% of success, right? So supposedly MI5 foil 75%. But even that kind of plan is only like 10% that it'll kind of kick off into civil war. However, they reckon maybe 100 plus deaths. But yeah, so a 40% chance if nothing kind of intervenes. He definitely agrees with me that Manchester is like the kind of start of where we're going, ready for 2020, ready for summer 26. Because of the economic tanking, because of Labour hadn't put enough in play for it to happen this year. I was just assumed they were more effective at fucking things up than they actually were. When you look, you kind of stand back and see what happens, because we're in it, we see all the shit, but actual having conversations with people, they still blind, which means people aren't being hit enough. Okay. So what I said, I was like, no, white people aren't gonna. That you're kind of saying it's us. And I don't mean to say white people. You're saying the westernized, civilized individuals are going to kind of kick it off. It's not gonna. That's not gonna happen. However, my take is it's not going to be Manchester. It's not going to be Bradford. It's not going to be Leeds. It's not going to be. It's definitely not going to be London. It's going to be Birmingham, and it's not going to be Birmingham with an arson attack on a mosque, or a far right person stabbing a fucking school kid. What's gonna kick it off is the grooming gang inquiry, because Birmingham's never been investigated. Right? This is important. My opinion is that the thing that the right are fucking pushing is they don't even realize that they are being manipulated. So why did we have such suppression over consecutive governments? And yes, because they're involved, right? But why? Well, because it needed to get to the fucking tipping point. They needed to flood us first. They needed us to be in a position where we were demanding it on all sides. But who's going to cause? It's the only thing that we can do to actually spark the influence to get the other side to fucking kick off. Right? They need something, because it needs to be mass, right? It needs to be like across the board. And what we have and what we see is even the kind of like good Muslims, the nice Muslims, the Muslims who are looking at what shit's going on, being like, that's fucking dodgy. They don't speak out about it because they are the first ones to fall to the fucking fellow Muslims, right? So I was like, okay, I think it's going to go off in Birmingham because of the huge Pakistani population. And not just Pakistani population, the Pakistani, begins with a M. I can't remember what it's. Oh, I'm not going to be able to see it. Mirpur population. So that is statistically the population where the grooming gangs happen, right? So here's some here's some tea, in case you forgot or in case you weren't awake. So Birmingham, Birmingham's our second city. So it's the second. So obviously London's the first city capital. Birmingham's like known as the second capital, right? So it's minority white, so it's easier to pop off. So there's 195,000 Pakistanis, which is the biggest hub of Pakistanis. Alum Rock and Sparbrook are most likely to be the areas that kicks off, right? This is where the grooming gangs thrived. And in 2010, the police buried a report because they were terrified of what would happen if it came out. So 2010 is important. We'll get back to 2007 in a second. So West Midlands, cops flagged 75 suspects, 500 at-risk girls. It's going to be like a hell of a lot higher. But they just covered it up. So the 2025 grooming gang inquiry is going to come for Birmingham. So easy for the rights to start demanding arrests and deportations, right? Deport. And then you've got a big fucking gang. So they're in the top 10% for, remember we needed to look for that, top 10% deprivation. They had riots in Alum Rock 1981 and 2024. They have no-go areas already. There was clashes in earlier this year with over 50 arrests. Mahmood, our Home Secretary, is from Birmingham. She is a fucking Palestinian activist. I don't know why she hasn't been arrested, fucking showing up at the bloody Palestinian fucking flags, isn't she? So so there's only there's 31% white minority in Sparbrook, so that's why potentially Sparbrook. 1981 we had the Handsworth riots, which was black and Asian versus the police. So mosques, protests, far right influx from Solihull. It's also, so we've got the M6 motorway. Really quickly, it can spread to Wolverhampton, Leicester, very fast. So it's in the middle. It's in the middle of the country. It's the best geographically placed. Also, it is. So this is why the grooming gangs are important. They have. I say grooming gangs, right? They're the rape gangs, but actually they're not just. It's not the only thing they do is traffic and abuse children, right? What they also do is run the drugs, run the arms, right? So they already have the networks in place. This is why smashing the county line gangs is really important. So what do we mean by county lines? Is like anything that's kind of crossing different counties. It's where the rail network is like. Well, the rail network that Starmer is now taking under control, right? Because National Rail were doing a fucking good job of smashing all of this alongside the police. So they obviously need it opened up again. But so from Birmingham, you can pretty much get anywhere like within hours. It couldn't be London because it's so densely populated and you can't get past the M25. Right, Manchester, they've already done Manchester, but actually it's not. It's not the place where things are going to go. It's not as strategically placed. So within 30 minutes from Birmingham, like you could have other cities pop off, like, and that would be like organic, right? People jumping on trains, people jumping in cars. So you wouldn't have to have large localized populations. It would be able to trickle downhill. So, so where do we go? Oh yeah, fucking Gary Neville, what a bellend. Oh, I'm not talking about that dickhead. Here we go. Okay, so yes, so Birmingham's 500 gangs could hit Leicester in 30 minutes, Leeds in 2 hours. Manchester's already locked down. So here we go. Pakistani population, 17%. Deprivation in youth, under 25, 50% plus, right? So you've got a really young population. So these guys are more likely to fucking go nuts. We've also got high unemployment. So the Pakistani males are 74% unemployed. So very easy for them to not, they'd have to phone in sick for work, right? So we've got the inquiry and deportations. This is what's going to do it, because they're pushing IDs as to stop it, blah, blah, blah. So that's to piss us off. But we keep demanding the inquiry. And so they're going to have to start arresting people. If we get the inquiry, this is the first time ever where the National Crime Agency is overseeing it, where they're actually opening old cases, where they are going to have statutory powers to arrest, to this has never happened. So you have to ask, like, why now? And yes, you say, oh well, Elon Musk got involved. That's not why now. Why did they do the Casey report? Right, they were gearing up for this because they figured out we need to trigger the West population. So we suppress. Now we're going to allow it to fucking happen. So it's opening 800 to 1,000 plus historic cases, mandating ethnicity data. So old and plus 4 to be determined places, but Birmingham is highlighted as one of the key areas they want to investigate. There's a 5 million fund for the victim-led network. And obviously people think they haven't really been doing anything, but the National Crime Agency made some arrests the other day. So, I mean, they're doing their fucking job. So there's 15 countries, including Pakistan, where we can, since January this year, deport now and they can appeal later, right? We're going to talk about the Human Rights Act in a second, because we're like, oh, well, they just appeal. Yeah, and I've said that's a psyop, so I've got some real facts for you as well. So if they don't deport, that's going to fuck us off, right? If they do deport, that's going to fuck the other side off, right? This is the like win-win. Does not matter what happens or the outcome of this fucking inquiry and the next steps. Either one of those sides is going to be fucking angry. And we're going to be in a position where we're in recession. How many people are going to they're going to put the heating up again? I mean, they're going to put the prices up again, and they always do it October, November, right? They're going to start fucking freezing everybody again. They've destroyed the supply chain with regards to food. Like, we're going to be in a position where people are angry, they're pissed off. It's the only catch-20. It's the only thing that I can see that guarantees mobilization regardless of the outcome. And everything else they've done hasn't worked. It doesn't mean they're not going to do that sort of stuff again. Like, it doesn't mean they're not going to, because they need to keep the race tension up. So we will still see, like, people, all the things that Grok kind of mentioned, but we'll see that because they've got to kind of keep up the tension. But we've kind of got used to that as well. Like, this is a horrible thing to say. Like, if this shit had happened 10 years ago, fucking hell, people would have just not being able to function in the way that they're just kind of getting up and going to work nowadays, right? So this year, so here's the scenario, right? So inquiry phase Q4 this year. Birmingham local probe compels witnesses from the 2010 report. So the 2010 report's already there. It's just been buried, right? So that's a very easy one to use. Potential protests outside. We're obviously going to have Tommy and his thugs. 70% chance of containment, but they will just arrest all of us for going, right? We saw that at Southport. Then deportation, early 2026. So we've got it reckons 50% containment, 50% chance of containment. So if this is it, right? So if they start arresting ours, the police contain it for 70%. Start arresting them, only 50% chance of containment. Due to, because I made Grok think about the different cultures, how they could spark a full eruption, start leaking names, victim rally, mob standoff, sectarian riots, M6 blockades, only a 30% chance of containment. And then if, like, so that's where it could go. Right? So if they fucking start leaking names and we think we're winning, we all need to be on fucking high alert. Because there's only 30% chance that our police, Secret Service, etc. could contain it, which means they're doing it for the Civil Contingencies Act or that it's civil war, right? So either one of those. If it's just us, right? If it's just us they come after, it's fine. They can stop us really quickly. So if she pushes, yeah. Okay, so geographic network, like I mentioned. So it's an hour to London, an hour and a half to Manchester, 2 hours to Leeds, Leicester half an hour. We've got Bolton and Manchester in 2 hours. Like I said, the county lines, it's already set up. You have to remember, it's already set up from Birmingham. And if you've ever listened to or read any of the books from the survivors of the kind of 2007 grooming stuff, is they were always going in and out of Birmingham, right? So that's already set up. Yeah, so grooming gang inquiry, hearing in Alum Rock, instant flashpoint, 60% ward, straight up. And we've already seen how the BBC will blame the far right straight away. That's what will happen, right? Straight up. So they have to keep the tensions up. So I was like, okay, well, where would it go next? Because it's gonna start in Birmingham. It makes the most logical sense, right? Again, because they need the thing that's going to take both sides, like either side, right? And I'm not saying we stop the grooming gang inquiry, but we have to make sure we're controlling. So how many people have been seeing the calls for a Trump-style ICE unit? Not that I'm saying I don't agree with that, but hopefully you'll see all the stuff that's going on, and now you're going to be thinking, holy shit, like this is literally how they're going to do it, right? Because our military isn't in our fucking country, it's over fucking doing UN shit. And we've had 37,000 illegals jump boats this year. So okay, so potential, so Birmingham, then Leicester, then Leeds, then Bradford, or potential Birmingham, Manchester, Leeds, right? So it's not difficult. However, Birmingham, Leicester, Leeds, Bradford is the most likely way that it will flow. After I kind of asked Grok to kind of map it out, he's got 80% chance that if we start seeing it Birmingham, Leicester, and I I was in Birmingham, no, I was in Leicester for the 2011 stuff. Like I was working in retail, I was working in bank fashion, I was a store manager. And when the kind of the EDL style riot started, and the entire shopping centre got evacuated, shut down, and we were escorted off the premise by the security because, like, and that wasn't even to the same extent of what's going on now. So 80% chance if it goes Birmingham, Leicester, Leeds, Bradford, we've got an 80% chance of the containment being 30% compared to Manchester Leeds way, which is at 60%. So it's more difficult for them to go that way. Obviously, Manchester's harder. So phase 1 is the spark, Birmingham inquiry, leaks, deportation pools, Alum Rock protest, because that's like the big population, 50 to 100 arrests, which is feasible because there was 72 named in that report. Like if they just lifted everybody from that report, that's enough, right? That's enough to spark it. So phase 2, the spread, Leicester, that would go by car, and that would cause blockades as well. Then Leeds and Bradford, cross trains, M1, county lines, shuffling mobs, Manchester later. Risk multiplier, Xbot, so they can increase the effectiveness, like 30% surge using X and obviously Telegram, and freaking Signal and EncroChat and WhatsApp and all that other shit. So who are they going to arrest, right? If there's is us and let's just say us and them, right? If they're going to arrest us, or they're going to arrest them, they're going to arrest us. That's what they're doing. Why are they going to arrest us? Because they need to flare, right? Oh, so I asked him I was like, you keep mentioning Alum Rock, like what is this place? But it's about 2 miles north of the city centre, Washington Heath area. It is an official electoral ward covering 1 to 2 square miles. It's got around 34,000 residents, which is Birmingham's most populous ward. So it's the most sardine-like area in Birmingham. We don't need to read the history. It was really random. So it's 93% Pakistani. 93% Pakistani. And the Birmingham average is 51%. So why? So Pakistani, Mirpur region, cousin marriages, it's okay to have sex with children who are children, people who are under children. They're going to be the most densely pocketed place in Birmingham where names on grooming reports are going to reside, right? It's also got around 40% young people. So they're going to be the ones who are fucking like the ones heavily involved in the trafficking, right? So why do I say young people? Because it's the younger people who groom the kids, right? So they're the ones who pretend they're the boyfriends. They're the ones who apply them for the drugs, the drink. They use the Epstein style grooming to then go get your friend and we won't rape you. And you need to read some of the books if you didn't know any of this shit. And the rest of Birmingham is only 22% is young, right? So it is a young, 93% Pakistani age area, and top 10% high poverty and crime. It's also been stereotyped as a no-go zone, so it's already ticking that box. Drugs, gangs, antisocial behaviour, terrorism arrests before 7/7. So it's not a pleasant place for non-Pakistani born individuals to go. I mean, they are trying to do some type of integration shit, but... So the 2010 report was called Problem Profile Operation Protection, detailed in March 2020. It was a detailed intelligent assessment of child sexual exploitation, right? So 2010 is important. That's when it was all, they were actually doing lots of investigation off the back of the so there was the Andrew Norfolk who was the journalist who kind of kicked it all off. So then the scandals started coming out. So 2010 is also when Operation Chalice was going on in Telford. Telford is like 30 miles away from Birmingham, right? So it was a West Midlands report into organised grooming gangs targeting vulnerable girls, but they never made it public because they feared it would inflame racial tensions, especially ahead of the May 2010 general election. So it was done. So it was Labour who stopped it because they didn't want to come out, because Birmingham's Labour wards, right? They're all where all the grooming shit's happening is Labour, right? Why is it Labour? Because that's the heavy fucking Asian populations, and I don't like. Okay, so Pakistani and type population, because Asia also means China. So I do apologise. We shouldn't use Asian because it's not all Asians. Supposedly, obviously, because it was the EDL's fault, right? It only appeared in 2015 after a Freedom of Information request by Birmingham Mail, which is a newspaper. So they identified 25 suspects, most with prior sexual violence histories, and 139 victims, many as young as 13 and 78% white. Gangs largely Pakistani heritage, so 62% of the identified suspects, targeted schools and children's homes. So they approached pupils at the school gate, strong anecdotal evidence of this MO worldwide, right? So targeting girls from care homes who were groomed to recruit others, often using alcohol, drugs, promises to escape from abuse, like I just mentioned. So they identified 42 different sites, 37 of which were in Birmingham. They also had like isolated investigations, so they missed things. They weren't using any current intelligence. They were literally just looking at patterns of information from past bits of information. So it wasn't the same as Operation Chalice, which was an active investigation that went out to victims, spoke to victims, and identified over 200 suspects in Telford, which is fucking tiny. So Birmingham's population is over 1 million. Telford's population at the time was about 120,000, and we had over 200 suspects and 1,000 victims. So what they identified in Birmingham was 75 suspects and 135 victims. So it just shows that they didn't do it properly. No, they won't stand. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of we'll stop for 2 secs. They won't stand up for it because it's cultural, which is why they're not standing up. at all. It's okay. So this is why everybody needs to kind of read at least one of the survivor books. I mean, if you want to really understand it, you need to read some of the court transcripts, or even just read the Casey report, right? So the younger people are the honeypots, and they take them wherever they take them, and then it's dads and granddads and great granddads who then show up to do the abuse as well, right? It's intergenerational and cultural. It's a way of life rather than there's a few wayward. Also, the girls, the girlfriends and the wives know it's happening as well, and this is why. So if you didn't see all the wives saying, well, it's not true, it doesn't, like, they know. Like, it's like an open secret. So what we need is swathes of Muslims outside of that cultural sickness to stand together and demand accountability. But yeah, it will not come from inside that region. It won't come from that culture, which is why the Home Secretary coming from that same fucking region generationally means, it's purpose. It's all orchestrated, because she won't stand against it, because it will be her brothers, sisters, fathers, uncles, not sisters. Oh, well, and sisters will have known, right? So it will be her relatives, because these, again, so cousin marriages, right? So it's not like, I mean, I've got a couple of cousins, but like, they fucking live hundreds of miles away, and we aren't like marrying each other. So when you kind of consider that 93% in Alam Rock, Pakistani, they will all be relatives because of the intergenerational marriage and mingling. So you're not going to speak out against your dad or your father or your brother because you're the one who's doing it as well. And the girls aren't going to speak out because even if they're against it, and they will be honor killed. And so they know it's happening. Some of them are sick fucks and think, they're radicalized as well, and think, the non-Muslims deserve it. And others may see it going on and being like, well, rather them than me. So they will just take them abroad and stone them to death, or stone them to death in the UK, because that shit happens, right? So they won't. They won't. So anybody who potentially knows it's wrong, they won't speak up through fear of their own lives. And then I would say that when you say they're all in on it, they're all related, so they're all in on it, right? It's not. It's a cultural thing. And similarly, lots of the fucking boat jumpers who are coming from places where it's culturally okay to do that, why would they think it's wrong? They don't think it's wrong. They believe it's right. If you believe it's okay to rape and abuse a non-Muslim girl, then why are you going to say it's wrong? Do you know what I mean? I forgot what we were up to. Oh, okay, that was me asking a question. Yeah, so that's about Operation Chalice. So I kind of asked him, well, if Telford did XYZ, how many should it be? So there's 26% Pakistani across all of Birmingham, right? Telford is 3%. So potentially we've got 10 times the number of suspects in Birmingham. So we should have 10 times the number of suspects that Telford had. So there should be at least 2,000. And then obviously 10 times the number of victims. So at least 10,000 in Birmingham alone. So supposedly they reckon there's about 500 kids at risk. But if there's 1,000, there was identified 1,000 victims in Telford. Birmingham is like always like the Birmingham's Pakistani population is a hell of a lot more. So 3% to 26%. I can't do math, so I can't work it out, but it's a lot more. It's a lot more. But also let's not forget, Chalice only looked at 2009 to 2013, right? So it ignored anything from like the previous 60 years when it all kind of actually really started. So it ignored anything from the previous 60 years. And Birmingham didn't investigate anything properly. So that is my 10 cents on what's going to spark the Civil War. And I didn't see that coming until I was kind of doing the whole thought experiment. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Just shit on everybody's bonfire. But after that, let's do some more shitting, right? So it's important we need to speak about the HRA off the back of that, because obviously we're going to have we're going to have deporting. They're going to have to start deporting because they need it to pop off, right? So we are going to get deportations. So this is why they obviously need to get rid of the Human Rights Act, because without it, they can't, supposedly. So Starmer is saying that it blocks deportations. Everybody's saying it's fucking blocks deportations. EU countries such as Denmark deport thousands with the ECHR intact. The Borders Act 2007 we're going to go into. Very interesting. Links back into the grooming gangs, links back into what's gone on in Manchester and what will happening in Birmingham. It's 100% designed to sell digital ID. So what we have is Denmark has the jury law and in 2021 they seize assets for return. So they literally kick them out and take everything. Fast tracks non-prosecutory claims, offshore processing. They do 1,000 returns a year, and asylum grants are down down 80% since 2015. Right. So before we voted for Brexit, Denmark had already blocked people coming into the country. Germany, that's the Repatriation Improvement Act that I mentioned last week. 28-day detention, resumed Afghan deportations, border checks tightened, 27,000 forced returns, 2024 Q1 to Q3. So they're doing that, and they are still in the EU, right? France. So anybody's saying, well, it's the European Court of Human Rights. Well, they need to start fucking paying attention to what's going on. France, 2023 law restricts benefits, but we're not allowed to restrict the benefits. Speeds asylum deportations, over 10,000 returns that sparked an Algeria row. In 2023, they deported 15,000 people. So EU's highest returns rate, it was France. But obviously that's why France came heavily under fire by the jihadis, right? So setting fire to everything, riots nonstop. Italy, they did an Albania deal in 2024, offshore processing, Meloni's re-immigration push, illegals down illegal arrivals down 60% and 20,000 returns EU-wide. So there's a 2024 migration pack, crisis declarations for pushbacks, 327,880 expulsion orders in 2024 alone, with 20% increase in returns, right? So it's absolute categorical bullshit that the UK, who is no longer part of the the EU, cannot deport, right? Because people inside the fucking EU are deporting left, right, and centre en masse, like tens of thousands every single year, not a fucking one in, one out, which we got with France, right? And then France didn't take anybody back because France is fucking just took our money and they're going bankrupt and they're fucking, again, the first country in Europe to fall. Like, the French people need to be fucking ashamed of themselves, right? Every fucking war, they go down first. Like, at some point, France needs to grow a backbone and stop fucking standing up for themselves. It's all that fucking, I don't know. Come on. So, because they are illegal, I'm not calling them irregular. I think it's bullshit. Because they're illegal, because they enter without a passport, they are instantly classed as illegal, right? They're criminals. The Immigration Act 1971, Section 24B, that it's an illegal entrant, and the Home Office must remove. So Section 3, number 1, conducive to public good. There is no automatic human rights blockade, right? We have a right to detain for 28 days and then remove to a home or safe third country, right? So if they're in the hotels, if they're saying there was no room at the inside, like they said there was no room at the asylum kind of deportation center or whatever it's called, the asylum center. So that's why they had to put them in hotels. Okay, well, that's fine. But then they should have been detained in hotels, right? But they weren't. We didn't detain, but we have the right, as soon as they land, because they land without a passport, which is against the law, we can detain for 28 days, which gives us an opportunity to remove them. If they claim asylum, which is not, okay, so this, which was not allowed under the Illegal Migration Act 2023, so which was passed, bearing in mind Starmer's just given fucking blanket asylum to everybody who's landed in the last 2-3 years. And the Illegal Migration Act said you cannot grant asylum to somebody who rocks up with no fucking passport. They could appeal, but they couldn't get asylum. And what that did, that gave us that gave everybody who fucking rocked up, they were appealing. So then we had a 40,000 plus backlog of asylum, because we can't get rid of them if they're claiming asylum. They're not fucking claiming asylum, but that's what they're doing, right? Slowing it down. However, the national and international laws allow it. So Borders Act 2007 mandates deportation for 12-month sentences. So as soon as somebody sentences something for over 12 months, it's automatic fucking deportation. There is no if, no buts. That's literally what our law says. They can appeal, right? It's not saying they can't appeal. But this is why the grooming shit never went to court. This is why the fucking rapists, it was ignored, right? Because rape is an automatic 8-year sentence. This is why they're getting community sentences. This is why it's going to magistrates court. This is why it's kept out of the fucking criminal justice system, as in the Crown Court, and why we now have a 75,000 case backlog, right? If they get a 12-month sentence, the Borders Act says they're just deported. That's it. Automatic deportation. And obviously they can appeal. So how do you stop it happening? And how do you increase race tension, right? You just don't put them in prison in the first place. You don't arrest them. You don't pay attention to what the victims are saying. You don't take anybody to court. It's the easiest way to circumvent that law is you don't have to enforce it if nobody's fucking getting done for anything. Now, the Illegal Migration Act that was passed in 2023, has never been used, pretty much. And then Labour are repealing the entire fucking thing. And so what the Migration Act did, other than saying that the asylum claims were inadmissible, they mandated detention with no time limit. And then prompt removal to home, to either home or a safe third country, which is where kind of Rwanda came in, right? And obviously all that fell apart. It built on 2007-1971 automatic deportation for criminals, but also added in a caveat for a duty to remove the then 33,000 backlog of cases. And also identify 57 safe countries for returns. So either they left from a safe country or they were happy to fucking take them. They just didn't use it. So every time they identified anywhere that was safe, fucking left-wing judges said it's not safe. Doesn't matter. Right? Because the Borders Act still says you just fucking deport them. So I don't give a shit. Stick them on an island somewhere. So Labour got rid of it like the day they fucking came in. Like it was removed from the statute books in, like, bearing in mind they were in May, like July it was gone. Instantly. Right? Because they needed more people to come in. Which is why they then got rid of Rwanda. They got rid of that fucking hotel boats thingy-majobby. They got rid of all of that. And now they're saying, we now have to have the ID cards. We have to have the ID cards because of all of these fucking illegals. Because we can't deport them. Because we just got rid of the legislation that enabled us to deport them. So which is how everybody ended up in the fucking hotels, right? Because we were going to deport them. Labour said no. And they don't have a plan. So the UK Borders Act. This is why I need to be really fucking careful. So non-UK or Irish nationals who are sentenced to 12 plus months jail time will get kicked out. Now, I'm not Irish, but I'm of Irish descent. And when I was kind of like doing some proper digging, so grandparents count, right? And my grandmother was she was a baby, but she was born in Ireland. Not all of my grandmother's siblings were, but she was. I was like, oh, fuck's sake. By months. So I don't know. But I'm sure she gave birth. My great-grandmother was giving birth to people on the boat, right? That's how they fucking did it then. She was one of 14. They just popped him out like nobody's business. But yeah, so up to grandparents, right? So latest Kate. Or to Ireland, which isn't even really fucking Ireland anymore. So, and again, so we had the Borders Act in 2007, which is obviously when they were kind of really started pushing ID, and then it got overturned in 2010. So we has been used for just under 4,000 foreign national offenders in 2023. So it is still being used, but there's almost 12,000 backlog. So only 50% of the eligible are removed annually. It isn't efficient, poor record keeping, appeals delays. So there's over there's almost 22,000 appeals, right? So again, we've got backlog. So this all feeds into the 75,000 cases backlog, is all these fucking appeals. If you've got like 40,000 people who we're saying you need to fucking leave and they've all appealed, that's instantly gone from, oh, well, we've already got a 40,000 backlog of cases we need to deal with. Now we've just got another 40,000 overnight because they repealed the fucking legislation. So do you know how the papers always say it's a mental health issue? And we were like, it's not a fucking mental health issue. It's an obvious fucking hate crime and jihadi attack. And they say it's a mental health issue. Well, mental health is got this special, it's got this special caveat in law that then blocks the concept of somebody having a prison sentence. And remember, 2000, the law states it's the 12-month custodial prison sentence, right? So if it's identified as a mental health issue, that is the circumvention, right? So because I've been going, why do they keep fucking saying it's mental health? It's because then they don't deport them, because they can't deport them, right? So they can't deport them because that shatters the narrative that we can't deport these people. And the fact that like almost 4,000 have been deported in the last 2 years using the Borders Act. Did you know that? I didn't fucking know that. All I hear about are the less than 2% of the cases where people, sorry, less than 11% of cases where people appeal and win. So only 11% appeal and win. It's not high, but all 11% make it into the papers. Left and right papers, right? The lefties are winning. They think they're winning. The right think we're fucking losing. Yeah, I think we should deport all the bum boys from the elite boarding schools. The problem is they're generational English, aren't they? I don't think, I mean, if they've got dual citizenship, then absolutely. I don't agree with de-citizening, though. I think we should just fucking put them in prison instead, to be fair. Lock them up. And they should do all the things that we pay our council tax for. So they should come and they should clean the verges and cut the hedges. And like, that's what I think we should do with the prisoners, right? Is they should be the ones who are doing all the shit that the council says it can't afford to do anymore, which is why the country looks like a fucking shithole. To fucking chain gang them to go round the streets of London picking up all the litter. So we absolutely can remove them. We're just not. So here's everyone says the refugee convention is blocking people. It's not at all. Which is, you know, I've just rattled off even the EU countries which are fucking deporting en masse, right? So it's not. So the refugee convention says there's no reason for somebody to stay in a country if there's a safe country for them to go to. This is important. This is the important wording. Obviously, we've got the mental health thing that will come up again in a second, but if there's a safe country for them to go to, we can't deport. So such as France, Albania, if they'll take them, right? So there's no need for the full asylum process. They can just go. However, we didn't get any fucking deals. Nobody would deal with this. Why would nobody deal with this? But they were dealing with everybody else because we weren't allowed, right? It wasn't on the globalist agenda to allow us to fucking deport these people again, which is why we had to get rid of the 2023 Immigration Act or whatever it was called. So we are importing the rape gangs from Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq, Iran. They're not safe countries. So we can't deport them home because they're not safe, right? So if they're convicted, that's why they're in our prisons, right? So this is why now our prisons are fucking jihadi hubs for the worst of the worst, who prescribe to things like the Muslim Brotherhood, who do horrific things. So even if they came from a safe country, because of their affiliations with the terrorist organizations that they're affiliated with, if they were even deported back to a safe fucking country, they would be under threat to their lives, right? So we can't deport them because it's not safe for them. And that's not just the Human Rights Act, right? That's also fucking the European Court of Human Rights. So what we have to remember is nobody will do a deal with us to deport the people. Not that we can't deport them. They've done the deals with other members with France and Denmark and Germany and Italy, but they won't do a deal with us, right? So we will have to go back into the EU to access the kind of free movement of deportations. So this is how the fucking leaders of the rape gangs are not being deported, is because they're coming from areas where it's unsafe for them to go back to. And it's touted as they use the Court of Human Rights to appeal, but it's not. It's part of the Borders Act. We can't do it. The Refugee Convention, we can't do it because of the 1971 Immigration Act. We can't do it. The Human Rights Act came, like, that's like what's been touted as the reason, because that's what they use, right? And we all get told about the person who fucking couldn't be deported because his son liked fucking chicken nuggets or whatever it was. However, yeah, everybody kind of pushes it's just that because we have to get rid of the Human Rights Act. So Article 5, which is the right to liberty, protects against arbitrary detention, right? But states, so they're allowed to fucking restrict that one. But it's really important that we know the difference between the ones that are inalienable and not inalienable, right? So some of them, they cannot breach. Right, the government is just not allowed. Others, they'd be like, oh, well, we kind of broke this one, but fuck it. So Article 5 is not inalienable, but it does apply to all. So it's not, I mean, Grok's saying it's not optional, but it is, right? Because it was optional under COVID. So the right to liberty protects against arbitrary detention. So states can restrict for lawful reasons like immigration control, criminal punishment, or national security, right? So national security, we're going to have to lock you all down because the fucking illegals that we allowed in, and you decided you didn't want fucking digital ID. So Article 3, however, is inalienable, which is no torture. So this is why we have a cap on 28 days detention rather than indefinite detention, is because indefinite detention is torture. Right. And I don't agree with torture anyway. So I think that's fair enough. Right. Because we have to remember, people don't realize what they're calling for can be turned against us. Right. You've got to pay attention to the boomerangs. Like it's people calling for people to be decitizened, which is a kind of petition that's going around now. I was like, yeah, OK, well done, because That's literally in the fucking Committee of 300 book talking about the outlaws. So go and read some fucking book from the 1980s. That's when Coleman wrote it, Committee of 300, and then go see what happens to everybody's fucking decitizened and you're outlawed, and they confiscate your home. You have to escape your home. So then they confiscate your home. Then they kidnap your family members, torture your family members until you give yourself up. Right? So that then they can fucking execute you. So let's not decitizen anybody. I think we still need to have fucking humanity, right? We want to stop fucking get involved in knee-jerk reactions and think about the society that we want to create. Do you really want to be in a society where anybody can be fucking decitizened at the whims of some fucking psychotic politician? Like, there are things that you need to really consider. What's the worst case scenario? Because that's what they will be gunning for. I have to be really fucking careful about this. So, Article 5 limits detention to 28 days. So after 28 days, they should be being deported, right? That's what the Borders Act says, right? You can be detained for 28 days, then you must be deported. Automatic removal of under Section 3, 1971 Act as well, but there's a 40,000 appeal backlog. And then they can only go to one of those 57 safe countries. But if that safe country has Muslim Brotherhood as a prescribed terrorist organization, for some reason we think it's fine in the UK. If they are affiliated with the Muslim Brotherhood, then they're not going to be safe in that country, right? So this is why they all say, oh, well, I'm gay, and so I will be killed. And you're like, well, if you're gay, then why are you raping 5-year-old white girls? Because that's not what a homosexual would do. You just asked Tony Blair, right? He was just hanging around the toilet blocks, but for men, for adult men, I mean, so not even supposedly, that's all there. So public interest trumps anything being unduly harsh, right? So if it's in the public interest, they can deport, which means we'll see deportations with regards to the grooming gangs because it's in the public interest. Where will they deport them to? I don't fucking know. Article 3 does block terrorist exiles if they're at risk of retaliation. So if they've claiming asylum because of being persecuted in their own country, that's what stops it. And obviously with mental health, they get it's a get out of jail free card. So they know what they're doing, right? So the 70% of the 70% of small boat arrivals, as soon as they land, are automatically blocked from being returned to their own country when they commit a crime. But then again, you know, there's kids who are returning for holiday, right? They shouldn't be allowed back in. So supposedly the 2025 border security bill is going to strip the status for sex offenders, create returns hubs, but funnily enough, there's still no third country, right? So the United Kingdom is specifically being blocked from having any safe countries, which is why every other fucking country can deport and we can't. So it's not the laws, it is the fact that the globalist elite are blockading our capacity to find a safe country to return them to. That's it. Because the laws are irrelevant because other fucking countries are doing it. Yeah, we do need to be careful of the boomerangs. And so just everybody needs to start using AI, right? What if, what's the potential fallout of boomerang of me as an XYZ if this happens and there's a rogue fucking psychotic person in charge? How could this boomerang back on me? It pays to read their plans, you know. Behold a pale horse book and the Committee of 300. Like even just those two give you a good idea of what they've been trying to do and are trying to do. So there's 3,000 active Islamists on the watch list from Syria, Afghan, Iraq, and Iran. With 80% counterterrorism investigations are Islamist inspired, and they're fucking trapped here, right? Because they have to be, because we need to be brought to heel. Like, we've got to be brought to heel. So the ways that they avoid deporting them, right? I have avoided deporting them until now, is obviously they just don't go to court. That's key. But even when they do go to court, they're from countries where it's not safe for them to go back to, especially because of the crime they committed, and then we're being fucking blockaded from any safe country. Hopefully that's now all making sense. The Human Rights Act is not the fucking problem. The fucking globalists blocking us being able to deport people is the problem. Because we're going to get another consultation, we need to be ready with facts for when it comes, because it's coming again. This will be like the fourth time in the space of 6 years. But also they're going to try and get rid of judicial review, right? So I mentioned that last week. That's our opportunity when they put a law in place without being arrested and kind of fighting in court. That's our opportunity to fucking stop it. But that's what they want to do with this Bill of Rights, is get rid of judicial review. And that's what Farage is pushing as well. Right? So for every it took me, I mean, okay, so how many hours did I spend chatting to Grok? I don't know, maybe 3, 4 off and on. It doesn't. And yes, okay, so yes, I have kind of been looking into this stuff for a while, but even if you didn't know anything, you could literally just say, is the Human Rights Act the reason that nobody's getting deported? Or are there other laws in place? Are there other countries that are deporting who prescribe to the same thing? So remember, the only difference between the European Human Rights Act, I can't remember what it's called, and the Human Rights Act in the UK is that it's literally on our statute books, right? So everybody else who's part of the EU still has to abide by it. But it's the same fucking laws, just ours is embedded in our is on our statute books and it's embedded in our law, right? So it's our law that we adopted and everybody else just uses the European one. But they're part of Europe and they're part of the European Court of Human Rights. So we're still part of the European Court of Human Rights, even though we've left Europe. So they have to still abide by it. They have to abide by it more, but we put it on our law, on our statute, because our government went, well, there's no way they would have been able to fucking, when they created it, there was no way that they did it to stop Strasbourg being above our courts, right? Because everyone wanted to fucking come out of EU then, so they a happy medium supposedly, and obviously because Maggie'd fucking peeled back the shit that the EU is allowed to do, and then Tony Blair kind of went, oh no, we need all this, we kind of like repealed everything, because he's a fucking idiot. Okay, so now we're going to move into, oh my gosh, look at the time. The third bit, and we'll do this quick. We'll do these next two bits. They are faster anyway. But so bring on the Nazis. Spoiler alerts, it's not reform, right? I'm bored of saying this, but it's really important that we do. Okay, so it's important, right? So if you look at history, you can see what's going to happen, right? So I've said over and over and over again, the far right are not the Nazis, right? It's the National Socialist Party. We already know Starmer's fucking, I mean, he wants to be communist, and communism and socialism don't really get on, but he had to roll stuff back. So, so we have the Nazis in power right now. What happened in Germany was the practice run. So all we need to do is we need to watch what was happening, what happened and how things transpired in Germany so that we can start to fucking see how they're doing the same playbook here. And obviously we can also look at what they were doing in America, which is like 4 years ahead of where we were. I mean, they've ramped it up. But let's go back through history, because then we can see some of the things that they didn't manage to do in America because Trump got back in. So, because it's really important to remember that the Nazis didn't storm Germany with tanks, they used democracy. Hyperinflation, Versailles humiliation, communist scares, Hitler joined the German Workers' Party in 1919, rebranded it the National Socialist Party in 1920, anti-Semitism easily fucking amplified, really easy. So in 1920s, we had the Nazis were anti-elite radicals, right? So, they're fucking Antifa. It's so funny. But they're the anti-elite radicals, promised national renewal, worker rights, but crushed the unions. What do we see? We see the fucking fight between Labour and the unions. There was 1929 crash. We are going into recession. The Nazis surged from 2.6 votes up to 18 votes. Yes, we're seeing reform surge. But we're here. We're not here yet. It doesn't mean tide can't turn, right? And this, I said over and over and over, there's a reason why fucking they swooped Nigel Farage in just before the general election. Anybody who can't see, okay, so I said it's not reform, aren't the Nazis, but he's still a fucking globalist puppet, right? But reform are going to do something to implode their base. They will have to. Absolutely have to, because reform will not be able to do what needs to be done other than stoke the tension. It's the wrong people. The fucking Green Party are coming up on the rear there. You want to see how many Greens there are now. So in 1932, they had 37% of the vote. So Labour's in power, 33% of the vote. Biggest party, no majority back in Germany. There was the Reichstag fire, blame the communists. It's weird, isn't it? We've got like fucking Jews being blamed, jihadis being blamed, neo-Nazis being blamed. It's the same playbook. Rights were suspended. Oh, look. Oh, look. People want to be decitizened. People want to get rid of the Human Rights Act, where you have no rights. So this is fucking it's what Hitler did. Suspended the rights of people. Getting rid of freedom of speech. You are speaking out against Starmer. You're calling Starmer a wanker. Let's arrest you, right? Freedom of speech suspended. This is literally what the Nazis did. Dictatorship by decree. By 1934, the Night of the Long Knives, purging revivals. We just had fucking Manchester as a threat to Burnham. Don't do it. Don't do it, Burnham. Go back in your fucking box. Full control, no elections and one party. Didn't they already kind of like half get rid of some of the local elections because they were redrawing the borders? I mean, 2029 is when we're supposed to have our next general general election. Isn't that the same year they're going to bring in digital ID and you can't work unless you have your digital ID? I mean, it's really easy now that we demanded ID to fucking vote, that unless you have a digital ID, you can't vote. But maybe if you've eaten too much meat, then you're not allowed to vote. I think people are just, I don't think people have, I think the problem is the people who were awake during COVID, early COVID, always knew reform. We're fucking sheep in wolves in sheep's clothing. The newly awake, I haven't got a fucking clue. And the non-awake, who just don't like Labour and they kind of won't vote Conservative anymore. Like they haven't got it. Like people are dumb. Okay, I say dumb, but they're ignorant. You just need to pay attention. You can start seeing stuff. Maybe you can't see stuff necessarily in the way that I see stuff, right? But it doesn't mean you can't see what's going on. You can't just look at it and be like, why is this guy fucking heading up a party when he was promoting Tony Blair? Like that. But I mean, I don't understand why nobody's asking that fucking question. Anyway, so obviously we've just had the Starmer Labour Party conference, and he's spent the entire time calling us fucking Nazis. The Nazi party calling the other people Nazis, reclaiming the flag from us thugs. What an absolute bellend. So Labour's manifesto of renationalising railways, energy independence, worker rights overhaul, 100% is like in lockstep with what the Nazi party were doing. So they didn't seize all of industry, but they controlled it. And if you didn't do as they said, you ended up dead. Right? It's a really easy way to do it. So how are Labour going to do it? They're going to fucking ID us, the same as IBM fucking ID'd everybody in Nazi Germany. They took over the farmland. What are fucking Labour doing? They have completely just over 6,000 farms have gone under since they've changed since Labour have come to power. So they blocked habeas corpus. So that is jury trials. What is fucking SNP been trying to do for the last 18 months? Get rid of jury trials for sex offenders, right? What are they pushing? What did they do during COVID? Get rid of jury trials. What are they pushing to get rid of the backlog? Get rid of jury trials, right? So we're literally seeing this. Like, what are the people on the fucking left doing? Like, are they even reading any fucking history books? And they call Trump a Nazi when he is not controlling the fucking industries. He is giving everything back to the states. He is empowering the people to do their own fucking job. He is touting free speech. He's doing the opposite of what the fucking Nazis did. We have Starmer, Nazi Lockstep, and they think he's the fucking hero of the nation. And then they're going to fucking Jeremy Corbyn, right? It's so silly. Is literal, like, when you do the side by side of the Nazi Germany, Bolshevik Revolution, and UK 97 to 2025, it's exactly the same fucking shit. So it started with, I mean, we all knew it started with Tony Blair, right? But he just didn't do it fast enough. He wasn't effective enough. It just took him too long. Well, it's taken them too long. Too many people have woke up. And they thought they could do it with fucking COVID. Thought they could do it with... So they just keep thinking they're doing it. It's the same stuff. So, key parallels and themes. So the economic crisis as a catalyst. So 1923 hyperinflation, 1929 crash. Russia, they had the famine, World War I losses. Bolsheviks see farms, factories for equality, UK. Blair's bank bailouts 2008. Then Cameron threw in the austerity, Starmer's nationalisation. It's like British jobs, like all of that shit. So it's the same thing, right? Scapegoating the other. In Germany, it was the Jews as parasites. Russia, the kulaks, the Jews, the intellectuals. In the UK, it's British people, right? So being English is racist. Like we're the baddies. Far right like colonial guilt, reparations, so it's us, right? We're the fucking scapegoats. Legal crackdowns and control. Germany, they had the Enabling Act in 1993, which completely killed democracy. They had Gestapo and IBM cards, which tracked everything. In Russia, you had Red Terror, OGPU and NKVD, and then that became like the KGB. So 25% of the population joined, and they became the informants. So under Blair, we had the anti-terror laws, we had Cameron's Prevent and Starmer's HR, getting rid of the human rights review. We also saw them do it under COVID, you know, tell your teacher if your mum and dad's against the COVID vaccines, and obviously the digital ID, right? Then we've got so the Nazis and the Bolsheviks both crushed the actual patriots. So we had the Weimar resistors and the White Army, and obviously the UK patriots, which is us, are sneered as the fucking Nazis. So the Weimar resistors and the White Army, just so you know, so the Weimar resistors fought the Nazis in Germany 1919 to 1933. So it was a kind of a historical group with loose networks in Germany, kind of like we are, lots of different pockets of people who opposed the rising Nazi party before they seized power. So a mix of liberals, conservative, socialists and religious figures who rejected Hitler's authoritarian nationalism and anti-Semitic bullshit. But they were just completely smashed in 1933, when the Enabling Act banned all parties. And all 30,000 were fucking arrested. And 30,000 plus were arrested, and loads of people like went underground and tried to disappear, tried to kind of fight back, but found gone. The White Army in Russia, again, it wasn't one team. It was a ragtag coalition of people who were liberals, who were czarists and peasants who said no to Lenin's Red Fist. There was 9 million killed as part in the Civil War. But the White Party fought for freedom, and this is kind of where the White Rose and stuff was inspired back in Nazi Germany. So they had military leaders, political mix, and then, funnily enough, UK, France, and the US supplied arms to the White Army. And I say funnily enough because we also funded the other side, right? Because we funded all sides. But the White Army controlled Ukraine and Siberia until it was taken over. I thought that was interesting. Until it was taken over by the Red Army. So there was 1 million exiles to Europe, or they were executed if they were found. And again, so fighting against socialism. And I don't want you to think, oh my God, it looks like that we're not going to win. Because they keep being defeated. It doesn't mean that in any way, shape, or form. But I don't know why he's told me twice. Yeah, so Ukraine, Siberia, and Crimea were initially under white resistor control, and then were overtaken by Russia. So that whole Ukraine thing is like really old, fighting, rather than like even just the last 20, 30 years. Okay. Oh, sorry. Yep. 6,365 closures of farms. There's a 10,000 plus farmer vacuum in the United Kingdom. 10,000 plus farmer vacuum. In the first quarter of this year, there was 2,000 farms that closed. And obviously, we've got incentives for solar farms, rewilding, and you know that's key to what they did in Nazi Germany. And obviously, the Labour Party and the Conservative Party did the same thing in World War II, kind of just took farms. And Labour then did it in earnest after World War II, and then we started starving. So I didn't realise there was 10,000 farm vacuum in the country, which is scary. Because we already have issues with logistics, because we can't get food, can't get stuff in and out because Europe says no. We can't get rid of people because Europe says no. And I say Europe, the fucking puppet masters. And then we can't feed ourselves. And then they'll ground all the airplanes, right? So do you remember like airplane groundings are coming like 2029, 2030, where you will own nothing and be happy? They're following their plan left, right, and center. Like we just need to fucking watch it, right? Or I say watch it, but we are watching it. Like they're not deviating. So when anybody kind of fucking says trust the plan, I'm like, I'm fucking watching them do it, mate. I don't not the fucking trust the fucking white hat bullshit plan. I mean, like I'm fucking trusting them to follow their plan to the letter because they have got so much invested, so many fucking different people to coordinate. They can't just pivot and U-turn, right? They will keep coming back to this. They will be trying slightly different things, but they still have to. The end goal is always the same. They have to do the thing to make the thing happen, right? So we went through like how do you create an offer? So they know what their goal is. They will keep manipulating people to make it happen. But we're literally watching fucking Nazi Germany 2.0 in the UK, and nobody's paying attention, like at all. Like it's driving me. I mean, did people not do history at school? Nobody fucking do any history to be like, oh wait a minute, didn't the Germans do that? Didn't the Nazis do that? I did love history, by the way, but I mean, my sister's a fucking secondary school history teacher, and she hasn't realised it's fucking happening. Let's just throw that out there. Okay, well, with all of that, let's put all of that under the table, because we need to finish within 3 hours. Otherwise, my AI thing won't do my clips for me. I don't have the time or the energy to do it myself. So, and I think 3 hours is long enough. It's only supposed to be like an hour and a half, these shows max. Okay, so overcome the mind mayhem. So your nan is the secret manifesting genius. And this kind of presenting it in this way came to me this morning while I was making some chicken bone broth for my poorly boys, who thankfully, after like fucking the bloody diarrhea carousel that's been going on for the last week, what I mean is one will have diarrhea, then the other one will, then the other, they fucking passing it on, has finally subsided with the copious amounts of fucking just chicken and rice and nothing else in their digestive systems. But because we're buying, chicken from a supermarket. And if you do have to do chicken and rice for your dogs, just a quick side, if you like just boil the chicken, right? So we do 2 like giant chickens in a big like stock pan, and a kettle full of water. Like Matt's got it down to an art, right? A kettle full of water. You obviously get the chickens are cooked really, really juicily for the dogs. It's fine. And actually, it's really quite tasty. So do it for yourself if you want as well. But then you get like a good solid amount of chicken jelly. And then obviously strip the carcass, throw the bones back in the pan, fill it up with water, you know, carrot, a couple of carrots, random bits of veg in there, no onions because it's for your dogs, and then boil it down. And then you've also got like chicken bone broth, so you've got like good stuff. So I was boiling up the bone broth this morning, and I was watching the pot, right? I was watching it boil, and I was like, had it in the back of my head, a watch pot never boils. And I was like, this can't be true. Like, you know, when you're like, oh, for fuck's sake, grandma, like that's not true, because at some point it has to boil, right? Because it will do, because that's just physics. It's energy, right? And then I was like, but that's not the only physics, right? So the other physics is something known as the observer effect, and so that's what I was thinking this morning. It's like, wait a minute, like a watch pot never boils takes into account something that people just don't pay attention to. So we're going to go into, like, you might want to put your this is where you need to put your tinfoil hat on, right? Forget all the other stuff. Like, this is where we're going to go into the crazy zone. So important to remember that your mind is a quantum computer. If you are focusing on the wrong thing, that's what you're creating, right? So if you're focusing on the not boiled pot, you create the not boiled pot. Then you're like, oh, that's not true. It is like legit what happens. Right? We're going to go into this, but I want you to have that in the back of your mind. I mean, at some point you will get distracted and it will start fucking doing its thing. But if you timed it with you watching it and you not watching it, it'll boil faster. I think that's an experiment we can all do. So in quantum mechanics, the observer effect says measuring a particle alters its behavior, right? So Heisenberg's uncertainty principle from 1927 is you can't know a particle speed and position exactly. So observing one collapses the other. And this kind of then feeds into the double slit experiment, which was done by Young 1801. And actually it's been kind of redone. So basically what happened is they were firing a particle of light through it was literally like a slit in a bit of paper. And they were looking at what it looked like on the other side. And when they were watching it, it was a wave. It was like moving in waveform. But when they weren't watching it, it wasn't a wave. So by observing what the light particle was doing, the light particle changed the way it was interacting, right? This should blow everybody's mind, right? Because how did light know it was being looked at? Because light doesn't have conscious. It's just a light particle changed the way it was functioning because a human was looking at it. So if you're watching the boiled pot and you're thinking this is taking forever, it's never boiling, you are making it take forever and never boiling, right? So it's not just, I mean, so I only learned about physics version like later in the game. What I initially learned was the psychology observer effects, right? So as part of CBT, cognitive behavioral theory. So your thoughts shape perceptions, emotions, outcomes. So there's the interplay between what you think, what you feel, or the actions you take. And so what you're focused on, you create. That's intention. And so that's not just like what you're thinking about, what you're focused attention on. So that is like feelings as well, right? So your emotions is energy and motion. I know it sounds really cliche, but it's the easiest way to explain it. Yeah, and me. Fucking that's it's so difficult to get your head round. But it's fact, right? We have to come from a place of this is being proven fact for 200 years. 200 years. And since they really kind of took off with understanding quantum mechanics and quantum physics, which is the same thing, it's just labeled two different things, by the way, guys. Since they've really like started to look into other stuff, and most physicists will just be like, I can't. And my dad's like he's a traditional physicist, and he's just like, because it's so far beyond the stuff that they deal with. But it just doesn't make sense. It makes more sense to me because I'm like, oh yeah, well that because I don't know why it makes more sense to me because I'm no good at I'm not good at math. So math, what 2 + 2 is the thing that fucking confuses me. But like there being multiple universes makes sense because energy is infinite, right? If you just accept that premise, then everything else becomes possible, right? But I'm not saying that I can imagine infinity, but I can accept the premise of infinite, right? And if you accept the premise, then everything else must be possible at some point. But if you can't accept faster than the speed of light, which is where quantum entanglement comes in, right? If you can't accept there's no distance. There's again with quantum mechanics. If you can't accept the fact that there is no space, there is no it blows your fucking mind. So back to psychology. What they proved is that people will change. I mean, it's kind of started with cognitive behavioral therapy and theory, but actually lots of psi, so paranormal psychology, and they really started to fucking delve into what's now quantum mechanics and physics, and this is like energy healing and understanding telekinesis, right? All of this was going on like mid 1800s, and it was all ignored and said it was bullshit, right? Because physics says it can't happen. So now physics is fucking caught up with what was going on 150, 200 years ago. And now they're like, oh, look, we've discovered this new thing. And I was like, oh, yeah, all the fucking psychologists and shit were saying that was going on way, way ago. And you're the one who got rid of psi from psychology. As in, because it's now called just PSI, right? So paranormal, we call it paranormal, right? So your attention is key, but you have to understand that. And I've said this over and over and over again, but I think my nan's phrase might be the thing that just helps you nail it. So this ties into non-resistance. This is the thing that everybody like, oh, you need to be non-resistant. They're like, they don't explain it because they can't explain it because they don't know how, right? So non-resistance means not fucking focusing on the thing. Now, this is important. This is different for men and women, right? So women, if women and again, this is like fully fledged research. If women focus on the thing that they want to manifest, they repel it, right? Because with different energies. Men, however, if they focus on it, attract it. So men still need to be non-resistant. Like that's basically, you don't give a shit whether you give it. You're not bothered about whether it comes or goes, or how it comes or goes, to be more specific. If you want an easy life, focus on the emotion you want to attract and just start feeling that way. Like that's the best way to do it, whether you're male or female. But if you are female, you definitely do not want to be staring at a vision board, like trying to will something into action, because you would just be fucking throwing it away. Like the men and women are fundamentally different in like biologically, physiologically, psychologically, like, and it's not just society. We are fundamentally different, which is why we work well together. So non-resistance is the flow state where manifesting kicks in, right? So it is walking away from that pot, knowing it's going to boil. You're not like obsessing over the fact that it's going to boil. You've just put it on and you expect it to happen, right? Now what you don't want to be doing is attaching negative energy to fucking it boiling, because then it's going to explode, right? So be careful about how you feel about these things that you're trying to attack, because then you're getting into like danger, bone broth exploding territory. So when we talk about things like the law of attraction, so I did a video called like the lie, the myth, and the sin. Oh my gosh, that's 5 years ago, attempting to communicate this with everybody. And that's because you have people like Abraham Hicks who keep telling you, focus on what you want, and everybody's telling you to focus on what you want, right? Well, if you're a woman, you've just fucked yourself over, because you'll never get it. This is why it doesn't work for women, because it runs counter. And the other reason it doesn't work is because you will not be in the state of non-resistance if you are fucking obsessing over the thing that you want at all. You just can't. We can't be focusing our attention on something and detach emotionally if the thing that we want is going to get us out of a state of fear, i.e. fucking manifesting the terrorist attacks, right? If you are afraid of something that is linked into your survival mechanism, it will be latched onto your psyche, and you will not be able to will peace into existence at all, because it's the wrong emotional state, right? So you have two states. You're either desire-based or you are fear-based. And if you are worried about everything, you are locked into fear-based. You cannot. And this isn't like you maybe can't on a Sunday. You just fucking cannot manifest the thing that you want from a place of love, joy, peace, excitement, because it is the wrong emotional state. Emotions, energy in motion. You attract like, right? And it's energetic like. If you feel fear, you attract fear. If you feel love, you attract love. And you can only conceive things coming to you in the way that you understand, or you can only manifest potentially the things that you think you're going to like, right? If you're thinking about a specific thing, right? So people are like, oh, who want to manifest £1 million? Why? Why £1 million, right? I want to manifest love. I don't give a shit how that comes, because if I feel love, right, I'm not going to be struggling with money. I'm not going to be having arguments with my partner. I'm not going to be struggling with my business. I'm not going to be like fucking not getting a parking space when I go to a supermarket. I'm not like, why? Do you see the difference? If I'm focused on manifesting love, I infect my entire life with that experience. If I'm focused on manifesting £1 million and I can't see how it's going to fucking turn up, what emotion am I going to be in? I am not going to be in love emotion. I am not going to be manifesting that money. And if I do manifest that money, it's going to come with like really bad strings attached. Maybe I'm going to lose it. Maybe I'm going to lose my partner. Maybe I'm going to lose my house. Maybe I'm going to end up in prison. But if you're paying attention to it, you're going to be slowing it down. You're going to be stopping that pot from boiling. When you let go, right, and you accept that infinite is possible, what you want can manifest instantaneously, and it can do. It absolutely fucking can do. And if you need proof of that, you need to start looking at the miracles in Lourdes, in France. Instant healing, right? If you want to talk about any kind of instant manifestation, imagine, I mean, that's what I could do with is some instant healing. imagine just dipping in some water and then every physical complication you've ever had no longer existing. So manifestation happens instantaneously. I mean, I like to say that I don't really want it instantaneously, because if I then get really good at it, imagine you sat there going, oh yeah, I really fancy fish for dinner, and then like a fish just like fucking slaps you in the face, right? Like that whole fucking skit from Monty Python. So I think of every single time when I think of instant manifestation, I think, well, let's slow it down just a touch to make sure. But if I'm feeling good, I'm not going to get slapped in the face by fish, right? So who knows? Okay, so just accept anything can happen. The only thing you'll create is the things that you feel. So get a handle on how you feel, and everything changes. So we're going to get a little... My computer keeps doing really strange stuff. It stresses me out. So we're going to get a little bit weird, and we're going to talk about quantum entanglement, multiverses, just a teeny tiny little bit, right? So back to this pot. In some reality, that pot's already boiled. You're stuck in the reality with the unboiled pot, and you're looping it because you've got your focused attention on it. Look away, that boiled future might snap back into your present instantly. And this, it really isn't sci-fi. It's how your mind dances with the cosmos, right? So quantum entanglement, and this is what Einstein called like spooky action, right? And he was just like, I can't fucking function with this. I'm just put it away somewhere. So particles that are linked across distances. So if you have a particle on Earth, right? So we'll go back to that light particle. You got one on Earth, which we're not looking at, and then one on the moon we're looking at. And because they're entangled, when I look at the one on the moon, it's a wave. I know this one down here is a wave. And it doesn't mean that they're the same things. I've said this. I'm sure I've had this quantum entanglement conversation, but maybe we just need it again right now to remind everybody. It doesn't mean that like they're always doing the exact same thing. They can be different things, and you can have multiple particles, and you can have... I mean, that's where my brain goes. Whether this is kind of like math territory. Let's stick to one, right? One and one. But it doesn't. There's no time delay. When one changes, the other one instantaneously changes. And you always know what the other one is doing by looking at the one that you're looking at, right? So when you focus your energy on the thing that you don't want, because your energy is your emotion, it's not your thoughts, right? Well, I mean, it's kind of... conscious is like teeny tiny little waves of energy, but your entire body, let's go, your entire nervous system is as stronger, and it's like 20 times as strong as what's going on in your brain, right? So it is, and they measure that through I can't remember what machines they use. Is it the squids? This superconducting... yeah, I think it's the squid. I can't remember what the squid stands for. Again, I'm not a physics person initially. Okay. Okay, so what you don't want to be doing is focusing on the thing that you don't want. And again, I'm not talking about conscious. It's about your emotions, right? If you are in a negative emotional state, you are guaranteed to attract the things that you do not want. And this is why we have to have the powder keg, the riots, the constant fucking racial tensions, because they need to manifest more of it. They know how this works. They know how the system works, and they play into it. Now, when you focus your attention, as in intention, as in emotion and thoughts, on the thing that you want in a good way, i.e. you want the pot to boil, by being non-resistant and just accepting it's going to happen. So if you're in so you have to be in a good state, and then you accept it's going to happen. You create the good state thing happening. So the pot's going to boil because that's the thing you want to happen in this scenario, right? If you want the £1 million, I don't know why it's an arbitrary fucking number. I would rather have like financial freedom forever. But if you just want £1 million, then go for it, right? Fill your boots. So just infinite abundance works for me. So if that's the thing that you want, you have to feel good first so that it can come to you, one, quickly, but then you need to stop focusing on it so that you can slip into the right timeline, slip into the right multiverse, collapse that timeline into your right now. And it doesn't mean necessarily you're going to get £1 million, but you're going to make it come to you, right? Yeah, I'm just ignoring some of the stuff he's talking about because he keeps telling me, well, I mean, it sounds like a good theory, but I'm like, oh my gosh, they haven't done research into that yet. And I was like, well, they did, but you just can't read it because you're not on archive.org and you didn't read the old books. Okay, so your nan didn't read quantum physics, but she knew the game. You know, this is why, like, watching paint dry, it doesn't ever dry. Non-resistance, right? Trust the outcome, act like it's done. That's key. If the thing that you want is already done, what are you now focusing your attention on? That's the easiest way to do it. And that's the way I do it, by the way. I go, what's the thing that I need to have happen? And what does my life look like once that's done? And I focus my attention on those things because then I can manifest the thing that I need. And then I can kind of just leapfrog into the next step, right? I step over the kind of step that needs to be done now, and I start playing in what happens next, right? If you're a girl, that is the easiest way to be non-resistant about the thing that you need, is start living the experience of that thing already being fixed, right? Because otherwise you're like, well, how do I do that, right? Well, if it's done, right, it has to be done in your mind, like, you know, the pot's going to boil. At some point that's going to boil, and then you can fucking take it off. So at some point, this thing that I need to have done is going to be done. Now I need to start focusing on what's next. So in the pot scenario, now you need to start laying the table. Now you need to tell everybody to go, you know, in my growing up, it was like, we wash hands, right? So you're focused on what's happening next so that you're no longer focused on watching the pot. So here's a teeny tiny little morning ritual for everybody, like 5-minute ritual for you. And I urge everybody to do it in the first 30 minutes. If you can, do it as soon as you wake up, because you're in the alpha state, you're still super suggestible, you're more likely to have a positive impact on your day. But definitely do it within the first 30 minutes, because after 30 minutes of being awake, you have an automatic cortisol spike. So you need to wait 90 minutes for that to subside, right? So you got to do it in the rhythm with your body. So if you can do it first thing, you're on for a winner. Otherwise, wait for 2 hours and then try, right? And then you've got like serotonin kind of run. Well, I mean, you want to eat breakfast and you get serotonin, and that's 90 minutes, like kind of like 90-minute cycles. If you're not trapped in the fear state, because then 17 seconds to you waking up, then you're already there. Okay. So let's get the jump on feeling good. So wake up. And if you're struggling to think of it in the morning before you go to bed, just focus on what your life is going to look like when that thing is done, right? Intentional daydream the fuck out of it. Like, this is what my life's going to look like. You know, if I need that £1 million, why? What are you doing with it, right? Are you buying an island? Are you seeing yourself on this island, right? You're not visualizing the money coming to you. You're visualizing your time on the island. And if you struggle with visualization, just journal it, right? So just write down. And I don't even write like me on an island. I have conversations with people. It's how I work. So I will write like random convos. I was going to try and find them, but I think I put them away. Be like, just like my convo this morning, I'm pretty sure it was like along the lines of, babe, what was I? It was me. my office was built, right? And I'm in my office doing my show in the office. And I've just written a post-it note, stuck it to the fridge saying, babe, fucking love you. Thanks for my coffee machine, right? My new coffee machine in the office. Like, that's what I do, because that's enough for me to then have that imagery playing in my head. And that's enough, right? But I have been training my brain for a while. So you might need to do more. You might need to actually do the proper journaling, where you're spending 5 minutes, 10 minutes night before writing, I'm in my office, just to get your brain juices going. I mean, I can see my office in my head. Like, sorry, I thought my tortoise was back awake. I can see my office in my head straight away. I know exactly what it's going to look like. And it may not look like that exact same thing, but I manifested my TEDx talk, right? I spent years wanting to do a talk and be on stage, and I kept going after and after and after. And every time I had the imagery in my head, I was like, that I am not lecturing in a fucking university. You can get out of my head. And then when I stood on the TEDx stage, which is really interesting, by the way, because it's normally like every other year it had been in a different room, and it randomly changed to the room that it was in maybe a week or so before we went for the kind of, you do like 3 pretend runs. It changed to that room, and when I stood on the stage and I looked out, I was like, holy fuck, this is the exact same room that I've had in the back of my head for like 3 years. Like, it is insane when you do this. I promise you. You just, and then, write it out the night before, wake up in the morning and just read it. But and just like snooze. You have my permission to snooze for the first half an hour and just daydream about what your life looks like when all this shit's dealt with, or whatever it is you need to get done is done. But prime your mind by typing it out, but writing it out. Do not type it. And I didn't mean to shout then, but that was like, do not type it, write it. Right? I've got journals everywhere, and random scraps of paper everywhere. But it's got to do it by hand. Got to do it by hand. Please don't type it. It doesn't work. It's not the same. It's not the same. So you have my permission to snooze and just intentional daydream in the morning for as long as you need. But, after 30 minutes, your cortisol's kicked in, you should be awake. So on that note, thank you very much for joining. For anybody who joined a little bit later and wants to go back to the beginning, my microphone didn't work for the first 7 and a bit minutes. So skip the first 7 and a bit minutes. And thank you so much for joining. Have yourselves an amazing evening. I shall see you next week. And if we all manifest peace will come. And that's how we can circumvent what they're planning to do. Right. And even if all the stuff happens, it's going to happen in a way that's go. So feel love, and love returns. It's the simplest way to make your dreams come true, because everybody wants love, right? And it doesn't just mean like relationship loves. It means like experiencing love, strongest emotion from like good side, right? Good emotion. See you soon.